This episode of YAA is sponsored by SpiritLedThreadsApparel.com. That is SpiritLedThreadsApparel.com. Right now, get 10% off all online apparel at SpiritLedThreads.com.
Howdy ho, howdy hey neighbors, how's it going? This is your boy Christian over here with You're Already Accepted, a community rewatch. My gentlemen, please introduce yourselves and we'll begin our episode.
Ooh. My name is Dick Wolf. I'm the creator of Law & Order.
You can't prove that.
Just kidding. I'm Ethan. That's Jonathan over there. Jonathan, say hello to the nice people.
Now here's a guy.
Yeah. Oh, Jim.
I don't know, Jim. I don't know.
Oh, he's going to come on the inside here and he's going to say, oh, no, not today.
It's another YA, Jim. Oh,
no, Jim. Well, for the folks at home joining us, we are looking at basic Lupine Urology and the course listing unavailable episode.
Yeah.
That's actually the name of the episode.
Beautiful title.
This has been the Jim Nance and Tony Romo impersonation podcast. Back
Hello,
to you guys
friends.
over at YAA.
Nah, but yeah, what we got for A+, honestly, great episode. Like, this is a phenomenal, another one of the parody episodes here.
This is A tier to me.
Yeah,
A tier episode, yeah.
Who watched Law & Order? Did y'all watch Law & Order growing up?
Nope.
No.
My family was addicted to SVU, especially. So this isn't of like SVU, but like, I mean, all of them kind of follow the
I
same.
mean, we watched a lot of CSI, which
Criminal Minds,
is like a
cold
less
case.
realistic
Minds.
version of Law & Order, I feel like.
Yeah.
Law & Order's got more of like the actual like courtroom side too, right? So-
Yeah,
I mean,
true,
this
true.
guy is addicted to sex.
Yeah.
Like somebody who eats
Yeah.
too much birthday cake.
Yeah, they didn't have that. Oh my god, Troy was iced tea in this episode. It would have been a 10 out of 10.
We found fecal matter in the victim's ear canal.
You mean like a guy who's addicted to betting, put him on the ponies,
Crack cocaine.
smoke too many
Meth.
cigarettes.
Yeah, Ice. This is the
Yeah,
special victims unit.
Oh,
You're going to have to get used to that.
you're telling me that.
I do feel like if that was actually how Ice-T played the episode, I mean, there's basis for that, but like in a law show, I would love to play the character who's just always baffled by like the most. So you're telling me
Oh, wait a minute.
this guy died because someone else killed him? Who does that? Murderers. That's what murder is. It's illegal.
Christian, take a walk, please.
Cool off. Hey, my partner, he's a bad cop.
Yeah.
Look at me. I'm a good cop.
Wait, I'm not going to fall for that.
He's right. You're not cops.
I can hear you and see you.
Anything you say can and will not be used against you
Yeah,
because
well,
we are
You
not
can do
cops.
whatever you want, but we'd really like you to come with us. Please and thank you. Okay, did we figure out where the basic Lupine urology? Because it's dog piss.
It's-
dog pee.
It's a reference to Dick Wolf. Lupine, Wolf,
And then urology.
Urology, Dick.
There you go. Because I thought Lupine was like for dogs. I was
Yeah.
Lupine is like
like,
werewolves, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
Or dog, but yeah, like Professor
Remus
Lupin. Yeah.
Yeah.
Lupin.
You
Lupus.
see, a lot of people didn't catch that the first time.
And then urology is just, pee. So, put it
I
together.
survived lupus.
Which is one of my favorite 30 Rock lines. You can't say Dick Wolf on TV.
Then you switch that around, it's a completely different TV show entirely.
So, A+, who wants to start us off? Jonathan, do you have any A+?
Yeah. This whole episode. Shoot. No, but
10 out of 10. Closer to a 10 than a 9.
I was pissed off while watching this one.
But after hearing you guys talk about it, I think I'm going to bump my grade up a little bit.
Yeah.
I'll take this episode's pretty good. So
Yeah. No, honestly, just like, from the jump, like the opening interaction with Annie and Jeff and Professor Kane, where Jeff was like, if it's any consolation, she got me here on a very misleading text. Well,
technically, you are getting screwed in the, which is kind of like, ew.
I know.
But-
we just kind of like gloss it over,
Yeah.
and the episode keeps going on. But what about the janitors coming in? Like, she's smart, she's got
Yeah.
a bright personality. I'll never find another dental hygienist.
Which
like
that's
her.
kind of a thing with Law and Order, right? There's always like a
1000%.
yeah.
Yeah.
There's always a what?
Yes,
There's always like an introduction. Somebody finds the body.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
kind of like how in The Simpsons, there's always a completely different plot to set up the plot of the
Mhm.
episode.
the structure is like to a T, perfect. Like, you have the opening, like crime that's like been found out or whatever. Then they interview random people that turn out to like not be it, but maybe get you a little bit closer and a better picture. Then they find the guy, but it's not the guy, and then like that's it. And then the courtroom stuff is just they nailed it.
And our little monkey brains just eat it up.
Yeah,
we eat that up every single.
And there's a chief that wants them to get it done now. Eating a hot dog.
We all sit here and laugh, and we
slap our bellies and laugh at the screen, but we just eat that.
I die a little bit inside.
So at the end of the episode, at the credits, it says special thanks to Dick Wolf. Did he help with this episode? Do we know? Because I feel like
they didn't name the episode after him.
They did. That's true. But I didn't know if that was more of just like a hey, shout out to Dick who made that other show that we copied. Did he actually? Because it seems like it's even shot differently, like a Law and Order episode. So I kind of wonder. I'm gonna look that up. Honestly, I'm curious.
Google search: did Dick Grayson die? Did Dick Wolf?
I'm gonna cut that. Now I gotta cut it.
I mean, I don't see him on IMDb here. In the crew, it just says special thanks Dick Wolf. So I don't know what that means. Maybe he was like a what's that? What am I like an advisor?
An executive.
Maybe he was just like, yep, you can parody my show.
Yeah.
Maybe it was the gist of it. But
yeah, sure.
I'd like to believe that Dan Harmon didn't even ask him. He's just like, hey, by the way, we made a parody of your show. And they're like, thanks, Dick Wolf.
Yeah.
Hey,
what's Community? Like,
and like you can't really sue him for that because they're like giving you thanks.
I mean, it's out of love too, like appreciation for the show. So
and they're on the same network, so I bet there's a little.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
Dick Wolf was probably like, so are Annie and Jeff ever going to end up together, or what's happening with that? What happened to Britta? Like I thought she had an arc.
You were a lot smarter whenever I met you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
What about you guys? A+ stuff.
We don't see much of Pierce in this episode, but
probably a good thing. Honestly,
because of Dick Wolf.
No, I think he does just enough.
Right.
They don't need to shoehorn him in there.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know. Just the whole thing of him like, okay, I lied about watering the yam. I was going to, but I fell asleep on a sunbeam. And then Abed's like, oh, a likely story. But Troy's like, oh, no, it's true. I used to live with them. And it's kind of adorable. And like, even though Pierce has had some pretty awful moments in the show, you're like, oh, that's kind of adorable.
He's been somewhat bearable lately.
He hasn't been doing a whole lot, though. I think this is whenever he really was butting heads with Dan Harmon and says, like, you know what? You're just not going to get anything.
Yep.
Like the start of season 4, the first episode, he literally just has like, there's a joke here with balls. I can't figure it out. And that's literally all he does the entire episode. And like Abed even hallucinates Fred Willard as Pierce in that episode.
Oh, Fred Willard, yeah.
Fred Willard, not Matthew Willard. Fred Willard.
Not Damian Lillard.
Not Damian Lillard.
Not Matthew Perry, but Fred Willard.
Commodore Matthew Perry.
Don't give up the shit. or is that damn the torpedoes? Sorry, darn the torpedoes. Heck the torpedoes. It's one of those.
We're getting our people mixed up here.
Yeah, you know. But I also really liked whenever Britta plays the Penelope Garcia of the or whatever the SVU equivalent of Penelope Garcia is, but she's like enhancing the photo. And Abed's like 8 plus 2 times 5. That's, and then Troy starts walking away. He's like, 10 after 8. And Abed's like, I knew that. I'm gifted in other ways.
Yeah.
You kind of forget that Abed, like, especially this season, they've been leaning into his like cognitive disability or the one that we're not sure about. And so I like that, you know, Abed's playing this like a super serious detective, but you kind of forget that he's that way.
Didn't we already? Am I forgetting, or was there already like because there's that trope of like, I enhanced the photo, I made it black and white. That's the joke, which is pretty funny.
Yeah.
But was there another joke like that early on?
Pierce and Leonard. Yeah.
That's right. Okay. He's like, enhance. All right, now I'll send that to the copier. It's or how to
enhance a photo.
How to download copies from your spy camera or something.
Something like that.
Yeah. So they've kind of made that joke twice, but
it's different. It's a common trope.
It's a trope. Yeah.
It's worth getting dunked on.
And they do it well because she even has like the glasses and like.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm useful in other ways. It's like me, and it just catches the next scene.
Dun, dun.
Because then they go to Magnitude, and Abed's just like, so what you're saying is that you went into the lab, but there's no one else there. He like basically gives Magnitude's alibi so that Magnitude can kind of like rehash his whole pop, you know? Because in the second Papal episode, whenever they have the meeting with the entire student body, Magnitude's like, first of all, pop. Pop. Second of all, I ain't fighting for no like. Which again, I think this podcast was whenever I found out that he was Lee Jordan from the Harry Potter movies. That's still baffling to me because like, and Slytherin reads Gryffindor 80-30. They're gonna have to come back roaring mad to win this match. Like, You don't even realize it's the same guy.
Yeah.
You grown up.
You grown up.
I'm actually British.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that is.
He says at the end of the
You're
episode,
right.
doesn't he? Yeah.
I like the courtroom scene. Where they use the withdrawn as kind of like we're going to trust the word of this American hero, this veteran, against the word of a man who, for all we know, is a Holocaust-denying 9/11 pedophile. Withdrawn. Right? And then Annie comes up to the bat and she's like, is that why you hit your wife? Withdrawn. Is that why you drink and pop pills? Withdrawn. Are you a virgin? Withdrawn. Why did you kill our... And like goes in for him.
It works.
It works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is one of my favorite episodes of Annie. Like my favorite sides of Annie. Like like I appreciate the killer mentality of it. Like it's
right.
It's,
we see that with her like in the debate and in the summit.
Model UN.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh yeah, like
yeah,
just,
in your fate, yeah.
Right? Which kind of ruins it a little bit for me, but But then the fact that you find out Neil was the one who did it all along.
Who's me?
He did it. he did it to throw out the grading curve, so that way Vicky didn't have to fail biology, so that way they could finally have sex in his parents' cabin instead of having to go to summer school. I'm like, you know what, man? Kind of a baller move. I get it. Did
it for love.
And really all that happens is that he doesn't get to have key privileges. So yeah, Neil, I'm glad that he goes over a little bit. I mean, it's his fault, but he did it for love. So,
I appreciate that they actually included a scene with him. I mean, that's what Law and Order does.
Instead of it just being like a complete
yeah,
who are you?
Yeah.
Kind of like in Scooby-Doo, like
wait, who's this guy?
The likelihood is that it's going to be somebody that you met in the episode.
Yeah, and they had that scene with Neil earlier. He's acting kind of suspicious too. It's
right? It kind of rings a bell, you know. I might have to look into it a little bit.
Heard about your yams. What's such a shame.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. Looks like here. I mean, we've been swamped here, you know.
Yeah, and I've kind of wondered about that in terms of filmmaking. How many movies and TV shows has it been where the main character and the villain are intertwined, or the protagonist and the villain, oh, he killed my parents, or oh, he's actually my brother, or I feel like a movie would be more poignant and also more realistic if it's just kind of the villain's doing his own thing and the hero just kind of stops him. Does that make sense? There's not really this final showdown. The main character doesn't even really know who the villain is. Just kind of stumbles into the resolution. I feel like that would be an interesting take on it, because I know a lot of we were discussing the MCU earlier and how it's kind of a parody of itself at this point, but or more Star Wars movies too. I feel do this oh, the guy that was helping them was actually the villain and nobody saw it coming. But
look, I am your father kind of stuff, you know what I mean?
Right. Once you start that trend, it's kind of hard to break it.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. There's this movie I watched one time where it was okay, so main character, villain had no connection, but then we find out later that they actually were connected because they were long lost brothers and stuff like that. But it's that would just would have the scene would have had the same effect because we know what the villain did, this horrible act, and him, the protagonist defeating him still had the same effect. I didn't need to be his brother.
I feel like a good example of what you're talking about, Christian, that would be good. Seven.
Yeah.
Kevin Spacey he doesn't even really show up until the end. Yeah. You don't know who he is. I mean, there's a scene with him, but you don't see his face.
And you kind of expect oh, this must be a fake out. You're no, this is
the person, but he has no connection to them. He's just a killer. I mean, he ends up killing, spoiler alert, Brad Pitt's wife, but that's kind of after the fact.
Frosted Flakes.
What's in the box? A couple other things, A+ lines that we haven't mentioned. We mentioned the Britta one with her enhancing the photo to make it Old West. I do love Troy and Abed trying to outdo each other at the beginning with the David Caruso one-liners. I'm trying to remember what they even say. It's
looks like this ham just turned hot.
Yeah.
Or I don't know.
It
looks cold to me.
Yeah, it looks cold. They're trying to out before they go to credits. That's pretty fun.
Why do they always?
Yeah, and then why do they always run?
Yeah.
Go ahead. Why do they always run? Is Starburns the one that's running away from them?
Me.
No, I'll explain later.
The explanation is not the issue.
That felt it felt a little too written, but that was funny.
Starburns does a lot in this episode, which makes sense because
again, following the theme of Starburns helping the Greendale Seven in the conclusion of the episode. This has happened several times now. The chicken episode coming to mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then not so much a funny line, but one that kind of But I know it's obvious it's supposed to be like a really poignant line. But when Professor Kane, they're in the dean's office, and it's like, it's not a favor, Mr. Winger. Man's got to have a code.
It's not a favor, Mr. Winger.
Yeah.
Man's got to have a code.
Exactly. And before that, he has a little spiel about like being in prison and how because he's talking to the
man's word is only as good as his uniform.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, dang, that's pretty cool.
Okay, is the scar on his face, is that real or is that just part of the character? Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It was
Okay, well, I don't know what happened to him. I got learned that, but
passed away.
Rest in peace.
You can't say that. I don't know what's wrong with him. What happened to that guy's face?
Yeah.
So do we have a diorama question for this week? For this episode?
Yeah, sure. You were, because I feel like a lot of the diorama questions are putting you in the universe of Community. So if you were a character in this universe and you can kind of alter the story, what would your role in the YAM investigation be? I think I've done a little bit of thinking about it. I feel like I would be the like the guy on the inside, or who, like, you know, the federal guy who can like do favors for you. Like, I don't know, I had to call in a few favors to do this, and like I just had to give Leonard like my parking spot for the day, and Leonard was like, yeah, I saw that there were a couple of cameras in the biology lab, so I'll print out the photos for, you know. And so I'd like kind of ham up the fact that I had to sacrifice so much to get them this information, but then it'd be like, okay, well, I've got to walk an extra quarter mile in my car, so I'll see you guys later. And I would just leave the episode after that. So that would be my investigation. And in this scenario, I feel like what the explanation for that would be is that this would be a couple strings of episodes in a row where my character doesn't show up a whole lot, because in the real world, the actor version of myself would have had like other obligations, so I could only commit to a couple scenes per episode.
Yeah.
That's kind of what would be the story, you know, for that.
I'm kind of thinking along the same line. So in one of my favorite shows, Sopranos, there's a character who, like, he's part of the FBI, and like technically he's part of the group that's supposed to take down like the mob, but like because he loves the mob leader Tony, he just feeds Tony favors pretty much the whole show and stuff like that. So I'd be like the like FBI, like the overpowering, like wait, this is our case. Like, not anymore, it's not. But like I've actually been like secretly dating like one of the female leads or whatever, and so like one of the female lead detectives, and so like when it's like push comes to shove, I give them a tip on something like, hey, before we take this investigation over, I got like a dossier for you or something like that, and then like
so then they go like rogue kind of, and
exactly yeah.
The equivalent that I can think of is in Jericho. You know, there's Jonah, where he's definitely a villain. He's an antagonist, but like he's a cool guy. So he's more of like an anti-hero. I feel like that would be kind of your character, where it's like you're not supposed to root for him, and like you do just enough to remind the audience that you're still a bad guy. But everyone's like, but Jonathan, though, I'm Team Jonathan. And whenever I go to Comic-Con this year and Jonathan Pierre's there, I'm gonna go get his photograph, his autograph.
We shot the scene on location.
This was a challenge for everybody.
So are you guys thinking about this like in the vein of it still being a Law and Order episode? Like,
yeah,
theme?
yeah. It's a YAM investigation. It's a crime show.
Yeah.
So,
well, I have to admit I've never watched Law and Order.
yeah, but you've seen crime shows.
I've seen crime shows though. We watched a lot of CSI growing up, a lot of Criminal Minds. So I think I'm gonna have to go with kind of a mix of Penelope Garcia and like the guys from CSI that like are just in the lab and do like the forensic stuff. Because I feel like they could definitely have done more forensic type stuff with this, like made jokes, you know.
See, like I feel like, I don't know, Jonathan. I was thinking you'd be more like the Reed Spencer or Spencer Reed kind of character, where like you show up and you always just like keep providing random facts for like for the scene.
Yeah.
Like I'd be the one that say, "Oh, fun facts with yams boil," and that's actually what tips them off that the yams got boiled. Yeah.
Well, you know, actually, yams tend to boil in precisely 102 temperatures.
This reminds me when I was a Boy Scout and we would make yam pie and we would boil the yams. And they had to get to this certain.
Even you're a genius, and they keep running away, and you're still talking.
Yeah.
They've left.
No, that's fair. I think I like that better.
Okay. Good. Because then you get to be the Calvin Klein model. Because that's what his actor did.
Oh, cool.
Matthew Gray Gubler. The Goobler.
Oh, the Goob.
The Goob approves.
Yeah. The Todd.
Okay.
For leading the class. I went back and forth on this one.
There's a couple you can give it to.
Yeah. Really, the thing that moved me the most in the episode was like Todd's breakdown. Like as he was just getting like worked down by by Annie. So
and
I
then
think
whenever
Annie,
he gets, oh, so you're saying Annie?
yeah, because like I think just like her flip into like justice versus like
Vindication.
Yeah, vindication. Like that was great, and so yeah, let's go with Annie.
Okay.
I mean, she kind of makes you feel like Alison Brie could actually like play a cop in a show, like a similar show, because she kind of has the same. I mean, I know they're spoofing
Intensity.
Yeah, she has that same intensity,
Turns
and kind of that same like no nonsense determination. You know, and that's Annie anyways. But I said Troy and Abed though, just because I think they're the most enjoyable to watch, like their antics, the good cop, bad cop, them trying to outdo each other, and like doing all of the crime show tropes. Basically, is what I mean. They're looking at it as this is a chance to do another episode of a crime, you know. But they go into it pretty well and like actually do a pretty good job as detectives.
Agreed.
And also like their outfits look awesome. So
Troy's Spider-Man tie, which I never realized the first 3 times I watched this.
I don't think, I did notice it. Like at first you don't even really realize it. And then when they're in the interrogation scene with Starburns, you're like, that's Spider-Man, which of course we know is because
he plays Miles Morales' uncle. And
well, and there was a big push to get him to be Spider-Man in the live action films before like Andrew Garfield.
He also voiced Miles Morales in Spectacular Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Spectacular
I know.
Spider-Man.
Probably top A-tier theme song for a kid show.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Spectacular.
Although I will admit that show started around the same time that Spider-Man 3 came out. So even as like a 7-year-old version of myself, I was like, see, this feels like they're just playing out the movie. I don't know if I want to watch this or not.
Rerun. Boy. Seen this one before.
Also, I just want this to be said. I wish that trench coats were a normal part of fashion. I just, ever since back in my childhood, the idea of like the flowy trench coat and like whipping around corners and, you know, running really fast and you have the tails following you, like that looks really cool. So like,
that's a good point.
Right? Or even like, you know,
how to get caught in some elevators or something like that. I bet.
No capes.
Yeah. No
yeah,
coats.
That's true.
They are gorgeous though.
But also just
like
imagine,
Rorschach can pull it off in Watchmen.
Yeah.
It looks cool.
But the movie also takes place in the 60s.
True.
But you're right. It's like if it's like an ironic trench coat.
At some point it'll come back, I'm sure. Everything that was
You're
retro.
Right. Even I'd be okay with like, so like elementary school teachers wear like floor length cardigans. But I've also started to see that like men's long cardigans are kind of coming back, which most people don't wear cardigans in general. I am a cardigan guy. I think I mentioned that on the podcast before. So I'm just waiting for men's floor length cardigans to become into style, like mainstream, to where like people don't question if I'm gay or not, you know, which is okay if people question that.
It's fine.
It's fine. But it's, yeah. I do think I'd also give it to Annie for the same reason that like she does a lot of like, oh no, I want an A in this class. I'm not going to accept a C just because, you know, my AM got smushed. So she did put it in the legwork for that. I feel like Jeff's arc was a little muddy because at first he didn't care in general.
Classic Jeff.
Right. And the only reason that he comes around to like, you know, guilty people don't have confess to things they didn't do. And the only reason that he comes around on that is because Marshall Kane said that people have to live by a code. I'm like, that is a poignant line, but Jeff doesn't seem like the kind of person who would have like an aha moment over that. Again, like we've talked about how Community in 2022 would be very like woke and self-aware and like, you know, you're right. And I think this is a great commentary on the corrupt social justice system in America and how we need to stop disproportionately enslaving people of color, and like, which is true, right? Don't get me wrong, but
Vicky would have been trans. I'm just saying it. Just saying it. No.
Yep, you would have been socialist.
Yeah.
And don't forget to get your booster shot by Pfizer and Pfizer.
Yeah. So who's sponsoring this show? Who's backing this show?
Again, I'm never going to stop the Parks and Rec reunion.
Oh my goodness,
Ron, we've got to tell people about social distancing and washing your hands for at least 20 seconds.
What a bastardization of Ron. Of the whole show.
That whole thing was basically just he said the thing. He said the thing.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Little Sebastian. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sebastian. I remember when Chris Pratt played Andy. Remember? I remember that. I remember. Remember April? Remember?
Oh goodness.
And Garrett, he's really dumb, and he hates Garrett. Yeah. Like, Garrett's the worst. Yeah. Was Donna in that show at all?
I feel like she was. I don't know if she did though.
Right? I don't know. I know Tom was, because he was like, guys, I'm not really on my yacht. I'm actually on a green screen. Like, what? Tom was lying about how famous he is? I would have never imagined that.
Also, wasn't Aziz canceled like around that time? I'm pretty sure he was.
I think so.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't remember what for.
He it was just a bad date. You know, it was kind of one of those situations.
Was it sexual assault? Was that what it was?
Yeah, like it was like a girl who posted like this like blog about like this date that she went on with Aziz, and basically like on it he kind of forced like a sexual situation.
Oh.
I'm not sure if they ended up having sex. I can't remember or whatever, but like
So basically, he was being Tom.
yeah, exactly, pretty
Yeah.
much.
Also, you see Jackson Mahomes, kind of spicy, getting canceled.
He's gonna go to jail, so that's a win.
It's about time.
Yeah,
All I can say. As a Chiefs fan and a Patrick Mahomes fan, it's about time.
I've seen some memes of that where it's like LeBron crying on the ground. It's like when Jackson Mahomes goes to jail. This is for you. Like,
That's it. Okay. There are people though who are famous, and then like I there have been times where I've consciously thought like, okay, it's not going to be long before we find out this is a terrible person, and then I'm right. Like Tekashi 6ix9ine.
oh yeah.
Or
I feel like, LeVar Ball would be like one that I wouldn't be surprised if it came out that he like
embezzled money, or
like had enough, or like was sexually assaulting like women back in the 90s. Like that wouldn't, surprise me at all.
Mackie, no, he's a monster.
Who?
Anthony Mackie, you know he's a monster.
I think my next prediction, and I please don't sue me because this is all hypothetical, and I don't want to get sued for slander. I feel like Ice Spice is going to be that next thing where you find out that she was in like really shady business dealings, like she like ripped off money from her fans. I don't know. I could be wrong.
Yeah, but she's a woman, so it's going to be like people like it's going to come out, and then people are going to forget about it.
Right, kind of like Cardi B.
days.
Yeah, she like admitted to like drugging men. Yeah,
Right. Which
now she has her own McDonald's meal.
Yeah,
With Offset.
yeah.
exactly.
Cash.
But she's from New York, so goodness.
Anyways, before we get canceled,
don't you dare say this is a community podcast because we have well past that line.
I'm just trying to not get canceled.
Okay, yeah, that's fair.
Not get fined.
Hey, if a celebrity listens to our podcast and gets mad at us, that means we have a listener, though.
Yeah,
that's
That
famous.
is true.
So
For the next
no such thing as bad publicity, right?
Yeah.
yeah, we're gonna be on a Daily Mail podcast. Like 3 American podcasters
Mhm.
are on catching fire for this comment on Ice Spice. Like,
What are beef with Ice Spice? With Nicki Minaj?
and then there's gonna be like a bunch of YouTube commentators like, here's everything you need to know about the Ice Spice
Yeah.
YAA podcast. Which
Who is Christian Dixon?
Yeah.
nobody. I didn't even know who Ice Spice was until like January.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I don't know who you're talking about.
Okay,
She kind of came up from
Out of nowhere.
Out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Though.
Is she one of the Spice Girls?
So she,
No.
Okay, that's sorry.
no, she's just like a rapper, kind of like
yeah.
Megan Thee Stallion or Cardi B. I don't listen to
Mhm.
any of her stuff, but
Interesting.
Ice, if you're out there,
I don't listen to
Nothing but
rap
respect.
songs of the black female persuasion. Just so one might say no.
the farther away from Mr. Brightside you get, the less likely I'm going to
Yeah.
listen to it. So take that as you will.
If it was a bell curve, just say
on the meaning interpretations of the Unremarkable to Mr. Brightside. Actually, no, those are pretty similar songs, and they're just as good as each other.
I said they're not like opposite spectrums.
They're
They're
not,
like,
no. Just if I could talk about Mr. Brightside for an entire podcast episode, I probably would. I am one of the many Midwestern white straight males who's made that his personality. So what are you gonna do?
It's about me, but I'm a pretty big fan of the Killers.
I'm not like
You might
other
have heard
people.
this little known band, indie rock band, the Killers.
Killers.
They had this really underrated song called Mr. Brightside. You might have heard of it.
There's also this really cool song. I don't know if you guys have heard it. It's called "Radioactive" by Imagine Dragons. Not many people have heard of it.
Imagine and Dragons. I'm waking up.
Which honestly,
The song slaps though. Honestly,
Yeah, right.
It's a good song.
But like the evolution of Imagine Dragons though has been so
Oh, they've gone down the trash chute.
pooper.
The pooper.
Because like I don't know, I still live by this moniker. Like if you hear a song in a Jeep Wrangler commercial, then they've gone too mainstream. Like they're not really a band anymore. They just
Honestly, yeah.
which again,
they're
Imagine Dragons. If you're listening, no shade intended.
Night Visions was a good album, but after that they
Oh,
went
yeah.
downhill.
Even what was it, Mirrors?
Oh, the Smoke and Mirrors.
Smoke and Mirrors.
Yeah, it wasn't bad. Shots is actually a pretty good song. That one's underrated.
Yeah. Once it got to be, man, there's so many of them that I can't even. I bet my life was pretty good.
Maybe that's good. After that, really is kind of
What was the Thunder?
Thunder.
Was just kind of
Believer was kind of like the last one that I liked
Yeah.
that was kind of mainstream. And then they got really mainstream with like Thunder and
Thunder.
See, the most underrated song that they have is Ready Aim Fire. And it was like one of those like movie soundtrack originals for Iron Man 3.
Mm.
I remember in 8th grade I saw like a music video somebody made of all the Marvel movies up to that point, and it was Ready Aim Fire, and I was like, this is pretty cool. Yeah. Because they also did it they used it for Assassin's Creed 3. I don't know. Did you ever play that? Assassin's Creed 3?
I've watched you play it plenty.
I forgot we had it on my
Come on.
Xbox, but
Come on,
I guess
brother.
Ethan's even watched me play it a couple times, but
I don't remember which one you've played, but I've
so
watched
I
I love
Assassin's
watching
Creed.
you play.
Yeah.
You just enjoy it so much.
Yeah.
It's fun.
take that, redcoats. Which there are
Which
none.
guy's next?
Final thoughts on this episode of Community?
Pretty good.
Sorry, extra credit. We're at extra credit right now. Sorry, we didn't want to bypass that.
Oh, there's some good extra credit in this episode.
There
We
is.
can't pass over
There are.
the infamous extras in the background of the scene where Jeff buys a hot dog.
A little spicy. Keep the change, Garrett.
We've mentioned it before.
You know what? Keep the hot dog too.
That's a funny line in itself. I think you've mentioned it before on the podcast.
Mhm.
A woman in the background walks out of a room, or she walks out the door
Mhm.
and is wiping her mouth. And a man walks up behind her and is zipping up his pants.
Mhm.
And apparently they went unnoticed until after like it already shot it and was editing. So it's like kind of a little fun Easter egg, but also a X-rated Easter egg, I guess. Maybe M-rated Easter eggs. It doesn't actually show anything, but the implication of premarital,
dogging?
yeah.
Something like that.
Anyway,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Channel our mother. I don't like that.
probably should be careful with what we say in case we get some sponsorship from a
Yep.
company that doesn't want us to talk about that kind of stuff.
This episode of You're Accepted is brought to you by HelloFresh, which I actually have some boxes over there. I don't know if you noticed that or not. I see that.
There you go.
Doing some cooking.
Chang has like his mouth open just during the trial.
Yeah.
He's just like
Standing there the whole time.
That's great.
I did love that.
Does he really do much else in the episode besides that?
He puts caution tape up.
Yeah. Nothing to see here.
Oh, that's first time that's ever actually been true.
Yeah. No, but honestly, this is a incredible episode. Like, yeah, I mean, like, you guys know how I felt about the Glee episode because, like, I was such a big fan of that show. I feel like that not only was it just a really good community episode in itself, but the parody of it was just so faithful, so complete. And I feel the exact same way about like this episode, like just a very faithful adaptation, a very respectful at the same time. Because it really doesn't it doesn't take shots at Law and Order. And like there's shots to take.
What do you think this
Like-
is, Velma?
Yeah.
Mindy Kaling, if you're listening, please don't cancel us.
Yeah. I actually do. I don't care. But yeah, I just thought it was a great adaptation. Very funny, enjoyable. Almost a 10 out of 10. Excuse me. Oh, but
You can say it.
nah, 9 out of 10.
What's the worst that's going to
Gosh.
happen if you say it?
Well, I want
Dare to believe, Jonathan.
I want to be faithful with my what's that using the first
Your convictions?
Goodness. Yeah, with my choices and stuff like that. So boom. 9 out of 10. What do y'all got?
I got 9.5 out of 10. Honestly, just because I can. Like, I could have just done a 9 out of 10, but I enjoyed it a lot rewatching it. It's one that I look forward to when it comes back up.
Mhm.
And it's in terms of like I consider this an A tier episode, but in terms of like the parody episodes,
A tier out of S tier.
correct.
Okay.
S tier would be like the paintball episodes. The ones that I've given over 10s to would be S tier for me. So this is like
So
right
like
on
the
the edge.
Raising Cane's episodes are S tier.
Correct. Yes. The Raising
I
Canes
just
of
want to clarify.
yeah.
Yeah.
You're speaking my language now.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, the acting and the dialogue is incredible in this.
Mhm.
Like, not only it's funny for one. I mean, I feel like
Yeah.
every single line is either really
Careful
funny
crafted.
or is like, dang, that's like just a really good line. But it's a good combination of like humor and like actually like feeling like you're watching maybe a crime show. And like I said, yeah, acting is great. I like the set design, costumes. Like I mentioned earlier, Troy Naviat's costumes and really, I don't know. I feel like just the way it's shot. Like I said earlier, I don't know if Dick Wolf actually like helped with this, but it seems like he must have like helped them out a little bit, or they just because I mean it looks like an episode. It's even shot like kind of in that darker color.
This and the scene. So you mentioned the fellatio Easter egg, but that entire scene where they're walking on that like it's pretty obviously like a backlot set, but it makes it look sort of like a grimy city
Mhm.
with like vent,
Yeah.
steam coming out of the vents and construction going on. Like, I mean, I know it's kind of out of pocket for Community. In Greendale, I feel like they could have made like a throwaway line of like, man, did you guys notice there are a lot of renovations going on?
I know
right
this.
now?
I thought they would make a joke about that.
Right.
Like, it shows them like just walking through the parking lot, and it's just them repatching it or something.
Right. Yeah. But I did appreciate that kind of addition to the world building.
Yeah, I agree. And then I mentioned this earlier again. Like, I appreciate that they could have just taken kind of the easy way out and just kind of thrown like a shocker and like, oh, it was Kendra with the QU the whole time, and we didn't even see her in the episode.
Mm-hmm.
Well, like they do show Neil in the episode, and they do talk to him, so we know it's somebody that we are familiar with as one of the criminals, which I think makes it almost more enjoyable. Like, oh, we know this character. He was in the study group, like playing D&D with him. So it's kind of like unexpected, but I feel like a lot of other shows could have like just picked like Jeff or Pierce. Oh, it's a shocker to actually own in the group, and they just didn't want to admit it. Like, no, they used Neil. Like, he's a random character because he's a side character, but he's not just an unknown guy. Yeah, he's a recurring character, but they didn't just like make up a person just to be the criminal.
Like, wow, former Olympic gold medalist Katie Ledecky, what are you doing?
Yeah,
here? Sorry,
right.
guys, I bumped into your EM. Right.
So, it's awesome episode. It's one that it's just on the edge of S tier.
Just on the edge of S tier,
but it's in my top 10 for sure.
Staying on the edge. Okay. How do you feel the episode would have been different if they would have brought back a Rich from pottery class or a Buddy or a Professor Slater?
Who's Buddy?
Jack
Buddy?
Black.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah.
Like a character that is just far enough back in the show where you forget about them, but then they like make a surprise return.
I mean, it would have been cool.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to figure out like how you would like include, like, Buddy would make sense because it could be like, yeah, he was in the class and we just haven't seen him for 3 years.
Yeah.
But he still goes to the school.
Right.
Slater wouldn't make sense because I think she just left the school. Like, she was a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Maybe there was a reference to I feel like maybe you brought that up.
They made there's a reference to her in the Model UN episode whenever Troy and Abed are doing the news thing. And it's like, Professor Slater's still missing, scrolls across the bottom ticker.
Oh, okay.
But they never really explain where she went.
Right.
But I mean, as a professor, I don't know if it would make sense that she would destroy the EM unless she was like trying to get back at Jeff, I guess, maybe.
You could have made a whole plot of like they were transporting the yams from one lab to the other, and she's like, it all happened so fast. I was going down the hallway and the yams were flipping over, and I don't know. You could do that. But I agree, having it be Neil and having Shirley be, the hard detective and Britta being the Penelope crew. Like, even if you like, I haven't seen SVU, but I've seen enough crime shows to know that they're kind of parodying that. Mm-hmm. So I'm probably going to give it a CSI and a Criminal Minds. Both original CSI, not CSI Cyber.
Was CSI the original the best CSI to you?
Yeah, in my opinion.
Personally, I like New York better.
I
love Gary Sinise.
So maybe I give it a Gary Sinise.
I mean, they're both better than Miami, I think. Miami is memeable, but it wasn't.
Yeah, Miami has David Caruso.
Correct. It's memeable.
Was that the name of the character or the actor?
The actor. Horatio Gates.
No. Horatio Gates was a general. Horatio something. Yeah.
David Caruso.
Yeah. So after that, course listing unavailable is our next episode. A lot of airing of grievances with Greendale. Everybody has their slights against the school. Rest in peace, Starburns, man.
Mm-hmm.
Alex Osborne.
I think my favorite line is whenever they're talking about, Jeff is obviously not super torn up about Starburns. He's like, yeah, by the time I finish the sentence, 100 people have died in China. And Troy's like, why did you stop talking? As if, Jeff speaking was the thing that was killing people.
I have to call my pen pal. Hi, May, are you okay? All right, I got to go.
Yeah.
Cost like $7.
Yeah.
Which I remember, Ethan, do you remember the Encyclopedia Spook Horrifica? Or,
Encyclopedia Horrifica?
Horrifica. Yeah. We had it. It was like a scary book from like Scholastic, the book fair people. So obviously it wasn't super scary. But it was all about like ghosts and zombies and, the supernatural.
Cryptids.
And there was one section just on like death in general. Like, how many people have ever lived and how many people are going to die? Like 100%. But there was like a sentence that was like 7 people will have died by the time you finish the sentence. And I was like, wow, 7 people just died. 7 more people just died. And you never think about like for every person who dies, there are like 3 people who are born. But
isn't it more than that?
Probably.
Because isn't the birth rate higher than the death rate usually?
Yeah, that's what. Yeah. But that's just it's crazy how I'm going to sidestep our discussion already. But you look at like, especially as a history major, I don't know if you guys knew that, but I studied history in college. Like Civil War battles, and you're like, oh yeah, there were 50,000 casualties at the Battle of Little Bighorn. That's not what that is, but
Little Big Town. What?
Little Big Town. A Little Big Planet.
the side of PlayStation that I want you to see.
Yeah.
But you see that number, and you're like,
Whenever Ratchet and Clank just destroyed the
man, you thought Thanos was diabolical. Just wait until you see. But you're like, oh, okay, there were 50,000 Union casualties and only 25,000 Confederates. So that must mean the Confederates won. Which I'm not sympathizing for the Confederacy. That's the statistic. But you're like, okay, but that's 75,000 people, men, right, who were born, whose moms raised them and taught them, and they went to church, and they had dreams, and they had like a girl back home that they wanted to marry, and
felt up a girl and got punched in the face by a Republican.
Yep, exactly.
Those were the days.
Although back then the Democrats and Republicans were switched because so the Democrats were the racist ones, and no, cut that. But anyway, so the fact that a lot of people die, so Jeff isn't cut up about it. Like you should be more sad about that, because each one of those is a heart. What's the line in Frasier? I am a truck driver, but I'm also a deep, complex, full-blooded person. You know what I'm talking about?
I'm drawing a blank right now.
He and Martin are in a truck stop. He's like, I'm going to get reacquainted with good old America.
Oh yes.
That's really all the A+ that I have for this episode. It was still a good episode. I didn't have a lot that I wrote down.
Yeah, I always appreciate Garrett's. There's actually two singing moments in this episode that I love, and I wrote down. Garrett singing Ave Maria, which is funny because they had the callback to Shirley singing. She wanted to sing that earlier. And just I love Garrett, so great moment. Singing voice is awesome.
Yeah,
honestly, hits that note. And then the Dean singing "Come On Eileen," but he changes the words, and this is probably more trivia, and really nobody probably cares. But during COVID, that was always wash your hands for 30 seconds. And this was the song that I thought of a lot. Was this moment? Come on, Eileen. My hands are so clean. At this moment, I am stapling.
Stapling.
Jonathan, mark it down. On this day, Ethan made an extra credit that was related to his personal life.
Yeah,
I'm proud of you.
When I was in high school,
there was this girl who didn't want to date me,
and when I wore the costume, people thought I was a girl.
What a pretty little Indian girl.
And after the third house, I stopped correcting them.
I'm just glad that they thought that I was pretty.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Write it down. Put it in the record books.
Okay.
310.
Yeah,
I'm just gonna copy and paste it down on the extra credit.
We'll note it. Yeah, same. There wasn't a lot of A+ for me here. I did near the end where it starts to turn to the darkest timeline, but then Troy stops hey, Britta, you're not the worst. You're the best. Which also I'm pretty sure. Okay, Chang said it first because that was the Bagel episode. Oh, you're the worst.
Yeah,
but I'm pretty sure Troy was the second person to say, "Britta, you're the worst."
Britta, you're the worst. You are the pizza burn on the roof of the world's mouth. You are the opposite of Batman.
Yeah. Opposite of Batman. But yeah. I mean, I gave this episode a solid score. We'll review that later. Mm-hmm. But
to be determined.
Yeah.
Just off that real quick. Sorry, you mentioned the Bagel thing. I know somebody who says Bagel.
Oh.
I just recently actually
dox him.
Huh?
Somebody you work with?
No,
church.
I don't want to be too specific, but I do know of somebody who says Bagel.
Somebody that is friends with your wife.
Yes.
Okay.
You don't know them.
She goes to another school.
Yeah.
Classic other schoolgirl.
She's in a different podcast. You wouldn't know her.
Does her podcast have Cristobal from Chile?
Yeah.
We love you, Cristobal. I also want to point out that the gang gets a little too kumbaya about getting expelled from Greendale pretty quickly. They're we're together and that's all that matters. I'm okay. What would you do though if you? Go ahead.
That's a very our mom thing to say. Well, you guys are okay. At least you're all still alive and together, so that's all that matters. Not just our mom. I mean, it's not just
a lot
her.
of people's.
A lot of people would say that. It's kind of a boomer thing to say, but continue.
But yeah, the one thing that I do applaud them for is okay. you're not in Greendale anymore. Like you're not in the, it's like Jeff said, you stopped at becoming a study group and it become a family, right? He says that in season 1.
You're a community.
A community.
Yay!
He said the name of the show.
Aww.
He said the thing. But like, that brings up a really important discussion of like friendships that you make. Like how many of them are circumstantial versus how many of them like actually last and are meaningful. Like Ethan and I talk about this pretty semi-regularly about like friendships that we had in high school and how, shocker, Christian talking about high school again, but how I don't think that they were fake friendships. Like we weren't, being insincere, but now like people from high school, like hardly ever see them or talk to them. Like maybe Facebook posts and you're like, oh, hey, they had a kid, or hey, they got a job, or hey, they, I don't know, went to a Chiefs game. But even like in college, I've kind of started realizing that of like, okay, well, a lot of my friends are in Omaha or Kansas City, and I am allegedly not in either of those cities. So you can't prove that. And there are people that like I've wanted to see and I wanted to catch up with, but I'm like, but I like, it's not the same. Like in college, you're like, hey, we're gonna go on Saturday afternoon. We're gonna go to the lake, or we're gonna go like shopping. And now, and after college, there's like some planning that goes into it. Yeah. And like, honestly, Jonathan's probably the person that I see most that, became friends in college. And the most, most sincere post-college friend. Definitely not a friendship of convenience, because you're pretty inconvenient to me.
Well, you're stuck to me.
Blood brothers.
Christian Jonathan for forever. Christian, another 70 seasons.
100 episodes of Jonathan Christian, and Ethan comes along to you sometimes, but not Remy. Remy never to come on our adventures.
Well, speaking of that, like I went to dinner with a friend.
My dinner with Abed.
But it kind of felt like that, because it was like the magic of like just going home, or like stopping by his place and being like, oh, what are you doing? Oh, playing Smash Brothers or playing Madden or whatever. Like, oh, okay, I'll sit down and watch, or whatever. And like, but yeah, it was like that, because it was like, okay, we had to schedule it, which like took like some 3 more texts than it needed to. Then like we only like ate for like an hour and a half or so, and there was like this kind of weird, like not like a weird feeling like, oh, that was off, like the vibe was off or nothing like that, but it was just like this kind of weird sadness of like, all right, no, let's go back home.
I'll see you again in 6 months.
Yeah, he's got a 10-minute drive. I got a 30-minute drive, and we'll just, all right. He's like, we'll do, we should do it again sometime. And I'm like, I totally agree. And it's just like, but there's just this weird, like, I don't know,
it's not the same.
Like this
right? Like this, this is reality now. Like,
yeah, like, it had such a like sobering feeling afterwards. Like,
I hate it whenever John Mulaney made the joke about we're going to see each other for we're not going to see each other for 2 years, and it doesn't matter. Like, you're like, that's how it is. And yeah.
We don't have a dynamic question for this one. I couldn't really think of one. This episode really doesn't have much that happens.
What would be your eulogy for Starburns? This is a weird flex, but I'm actually pretty good at eulogies.
Why don't you give us one for Starburns?
Okay.
Sorry, Alex, as he'd like to be called.
A man cannot be defined by the star-shaped hair on his cheeks, but by the starlight that he shined in his eyes. It might have been from the methamphetamine that he consumed regularly, but you cannot deny that there is a star-shaped hole in all of our lives. Also, screw Greendale, because it's a 2-year school, and I've been here for 4 years. That's my eulogy for Starburns, Alex.
That was Christian.
I do love Pierce is like, Dean, as a student who's been here for 10 years, if anybody should say anything, it should be me. Let's burn this mother down. I do think it would have been funny, if this episode was shot sort of like in the Abed documentary style. He could have gotten away with like saying the full, mother effer and then like bleeped it out. I feel like that would have made it funnier. Yeah. Because you're like, oh, he said the bad word, but it's on TV, so we can't say it.
Oh, Chevy.
Oh, Chevy. You did this to yourself. Leading the class, I didn't have anybody, I'll be honest.
Same, honestly. Like I'm just gonna pick Troy just because. Or no, this is I guess more extra credit, I should say. So I'll save it, but I'll say Troy.
Can I just say it feels like this episode goes by really fast.
It does,
because it's like Starburns dies. They're in the study room. They have the riot. Chang pins the riot on them, and that's really the end of the episode.
And then they go to the trial
of the Greendale 7.
They go in front of the board.
I guess that's different from them getting expelled.
And then they go. Oh, that's it. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
It's basically that. Yeah, that's him.
Yeah, that does not feel like it's a 20-minute episode.
Yeah, it does feel very, very. Nothing really happens. Like nothing. There's not a lot of storyline.
Right.
It's just this happens. They have the riot, and it's basically done.
There've been a couple episodes that are kind of like that, where it doesn't feel like the moist towelette.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I said Jeff. Honestly, I don't remember why. I just watched this episode last night. I don't remember why. I don't remember any of it. Of like what the characters did, but I said Jeff. I guess maybe because like he kind of starts the riot, and honestly, his speech is pretty like, he has a good speech. I guess. I mean, even if it's kind of dark, like he's very well spoken. So
that's fair.
He is an ex-attorney, at least. Also, props to the casting department for finding a doppelganger that looks like Jim Rash, the fake Dean.
Yeah, but he shows up in a couple episodes, doesn't he? The fake Dean, doesn't he come back later?
He does, especially at the season finale, which we won't talk about yet because
we're not there.
Because we're not there yet.
But we are close.
We are close. But I think enough said about that episode, or for me at least. I don't really have a whole lot to add. I do think it's admittedly not my favorite storyline that Shane becomes a dictator. Every time I watch it, I never think of it as like funny. I think it's just kind of more annoying that like, okay, well, here's another barrier the Greendale 7 has to overcome, and like obviously Chang's not going to be the dean forever, so like just get it over with, sort of thing, rather than like I can't wait to see how Jeff and the gang figure out. Sorry, Pierce Hawthorne and the Greendale 6, how they figure it out.
I mean, so are we in marked in red in conclusion? Final thoughts. I feel like there's not much else to say about this episode. I actually had 6.5 out of 10 when I rated this, but I'm going to lower it because honestly, there's just not much about this episode that I can really say positively about. So I'm going to say 5.5 out of 10, which that might be one of my lowest ones I've ever given. I usually give it like at least a 5 just because it's community. Again, I hate the dictator Chang plot too. This really is kicking that off. It's just a frustrating plot. I'm not going to talk about it that much because I feel like I've already complained about it enough in other episodes. I just didn't laugh that much this episode. The riot scene is kind of cool. I mean, it's interesting to watch, but that's really all that happens. So
right, like the joke that Annie makes, like, "Oh, it's a little tiny riot gear." That's kind of cute.
Yeah,
but yeah, or Troy be like, "I check again. I'm not crying because I got chased by a gang of 12-year-olds." But
he is.
Indeed, he is.
We did a rating, Jonathan.
Originally, I said 8.5. I'll give it 8 out of 10 because I think when I remember watching this episode, I don't remember anything about this episode, but I do remember enjoying as I was watching.
So it's just sort of like mindless fun.
Yeah.
Right. It's not. I think coming off of the Richard Wolf episode. See, I'm learning.
Who's that? I've never.
Dick Wolf.
Oh,
Kristen, you can't say that.
And you're gone.
Ricky Wolf.
Ricky.
Yeah, Ricky. So we talked about how this is kicking off Chang's dictator plots. In terms of dictators of history. I was going to rank it this way.
I knew you were going with that as soon as you started your
I'm going to rank this a Mussolini out of.
Careful.
Yeah. I'm going to rank this a Mussolini. Just not. He's
Mussolini. Not out of anything.
Not out of anything. Mussolini. Screw you, man. You weren't that great. You do better. Do better. Be better, man. But yeah. Any other thoughts for this episode, man? Any guys, fellows, dudes? My brain is malfunctioning.
This episode's called Course Listing Unavailable. I think my thoughts could be positive thoughts unavailable.